Hey there, multi-prep teachers. You know how professional development never seems to quite get to what we need? It's like, great idea, but how do I make this work when I have 3+ preps to juggle? That's exactly why I created the Simplify Your Preps Collective. It's a free Facebook group built just for teachers like you, where we share tips, resources, and real talk about making multi-prep teaching less overwhelming and more doable. Sound like your kind of space? Head to kristenmasick.com/collective and join us today. Let's simplify together. Hey there, teacher friend. Today we are going to be talking about my experience of teaching new classes or being asked to teach new classes. And unfortunately, the mistakes that I made along the way. So we're going to be getting real about the challenges of diving into a new prep without a solid plan, struggling to understand unfamiliar curriculum, and underestimating the workload. So if you are a teacher facing the daunting task of adding a new class or classes to your load for next year, this is an episode that you must listen to. Welcome to the Secondary Teacher Podcast, the podcast for middle and high school teachers juggling multiple preps to get the strategies to reduce overwhelm so that you don't have to choose between being an effective teacher and prioritizing important relationships. I'm your host, Kristen Masick, a 10-year high school engineering teacher, former middle school assistant principal, and teacher coach. Every week, we will discuss strategies, systems, and time-saving tips to help you not only survive but thrive as a multiple prep teacher. I've mentioned before that at one point I had been teaching 9 different preps within a single school year. But in preparation for today's episode, I started reflecting on which years I was not being asked or needing to add for some reason a new to me course. And I was slightly discouraged when I realized every single year of my 10 years of teaching, I was teaching a new prep, a new class, and not ideal. But unfortunately, it does happen. So today I wanted to go into some of those mistakes that I made that will hopefully have you so that you don't make those same mistakes, so that you can thrive and figure things out sooner and faster and be better at teaching multiple preps than I did, especially when I did not have the tools to do so. Let's dive right in. I'm going to tell you what those 3 mistakes were to get us going, and then I'll give you a little bit more detail into each of those mistakes. So the first one was diving in without a plan. The second was not understanding the curriculum. And the third was underestimating my new workload. So diving in without a plan. Now, I thought I had a plan, and this was my plan. Maybe this has been your plan as well. Going to Google and asking for a curriculum that has to go with this new class. Or better yet, also going to a Facebook group and asking if any other teachers are teaching the same thing. And I will say this was probably my biggest mistake, was just spending so much time trying to find something that may or may not exist out there. And I wanted to mention this one first because I see it still happening today. Every single day that I'm in these Facebook groups, there is at least 1 or 2 people who post that are saying that they're just asking, does anybody teach this class? Do you have curriculum? Or what curriculum do you use to teach this? Or I've been asked to teach this class next year. Does anybody have anything? And I will say I did the same thing. First off, who knows whether or not what people are going to give you is going to actually align to the standards from your state, even like whether or not you have standards or what that's going to look like. Also, we all teach very differently, and so relying on someone else's curriculum can be very difficult, even if it's a paid curriculum. I had gone to several different trainings for a particular curriculum that my district had purchased for me, and it did help. It had like the basic bare bones. But if I were to actually go through and teach the way that they had given me the curriculum, it would have flopped. So not understanding the curriculum. This is where I failed the most using that other curriculum that somebody had given me, was that I thought that I could literally look at it the class period before, maybe the night before, and I could figure it out enough to teach my students. I thought the way that they presented it was, here's the slideshow, and you just need to go through these slide decks and your students will get it. It was boring, so boring to have students look at these slideshows. I've mentioned it before. I think it was in one of my first episodes, but I had taught a class. It was one of my architecture classes, my first year. I had gotten someone else's curriculum. I'd gotten their slide deck. That was curriculum. I had used it to teach something. I was being observed by my principal at the time, and my principal came to me during the post-evaluation, and he asked me, would you take your class? It was a swift kick to the guts, because I was like, yeah, my class is super boring. And why was it boring? Because I used somebody else's curriculum without actually using any teaching strategies, nothing. I just used it as it was and expected myself to be competent and that the students would be engaged and that it was good, and it wasn't. So I didn't really understand the curriculum. And not only that, how to teach it. And because I didn't have a plan, I was flying by the seat of my pants. And that led to a bunch of issues, which then led to underestimating the workload. Really, what I needed to realize is that I needed to have a plan, whether I created it or judged what somebody else had given me. I needed to really dive into that. But then I needed to also add teaching like practices and protocols. So my students were having discussions. That's what would have made it engaging. But I didn't realize that that takes time, and that I couldn't just add an additional prep and maybe spend 5 minutes per week or per prep period getting that class ready. On the flip side, what ended up happening is that sometimes I would spend hours upon hours planning, because once again, I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really understand the curriculum, and I didn't understand the new workload that was set upon me, that I would spend hours every single night searching and scouring and honestly just wasting a bunch of time. Here is the good news. The good news is you are teaching in a time where you have AI, and there are several different ways to really simplify and make teaching a new course, although it is not glamorous, it is not ideal to be adding a new class to your course load. But there are some ways to really simplify what you are doing or make AI do the work for you. In next week's episode, I'm going to really go into depth, but I want you, as you are thinking about teaching this new course, I don't want you to forget that AI is an option. I was recently looking at an article, and it was mentioning that 42% of teachers who were surveyed hadn't explored AI tools because they have other priorities that are more important. Now, if you're teaching a new class, this might change and be one of your priorities. And then 36% of those teachers who were surveyed also said that they didn't know how to use these tools. I'm going to give you some information on how you can use these tools to prep for a new course or even your existing courses in the next coming episodes. Now, I know today was a little bit of a cliffhanger for next week's episode, but if this episode was helpful to you, if you are teaching a new course, or if you have a teacher friend who is going to be teaching a new class for next year, share this episode with them so they can listen to this episode and also next episode. So to help spread the word about this podcast, take a screenshot of this episode, add it to your IG stories, and tag me at Kristen Masick, KHRISTENMASSIC. Until next time.